Now, yesterday, Nigeria joined the rest of the world to mark Workers' Day 2025. Today on Business Express, we focus on this year's theme, reclaiming the civic space in the midst of economic hardships. The theme reflects growing concerns about the conducive environment for civic engagement amid rising inflation, subsidy removal, and structural economic reforms. As businesses and workers navigate these challenges, it becomes crucial to examine the intersection of these variables. So today we delve into this with a special focus on how initiatives like the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas (CNG) initiative could potentially ease the burden on Nigerian workers and stimulate business activity. Joining us is Farouk Abdullahi, a seasoned financial analyst. It's good to have you in the studio, Mr. Abdullahi.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Let's start from what is on every worker's mind, which is the cost of living. From your perspective, how would you describe the current economic climate for Nigerian workers and businesses?
Thank you for this question. I would like to look at it from historical perspective. If you look at 64 years ago, as at independence in 1960, our per capita income was pegged at $1,847 per one Nigerian. Today, unfortunately, it is around $800. This goes to tell you that over a period of 64 years, Nigeria has been deteriorating economically in terms of the income of each Nigerian, which ultimately will be translated into economic hardship that is likely going to be faced by each Nigerian. If you look at within the same period of time, if you look at South Korea, they were performing way below Nigeria as at 1960, way below Nigeria. But today, their per capita income has, astronomically multiplied. It reached to about $36,000 per South African citizen. So this goes to tell you the trajectory that we have been moving right from independence till today. And this cuts across other, macroeconomic indicators that speaks of, the reality in terms of the economic outlook in the country. So I think we are still, classified as, a developing or underdeveloped economy. So we need to, have a mindset shift from that, notion, to becoming, a developed economy. And we have all the potentials, and, it's all about, mindset and also the determination to, become a better economy. South Korea, that I made reference with, embarked seriously in industrialization. They strengthened their economy through industrialization and economic diversification. But today we are still a mono economy. We depend highly on oil, exports, other sectors of the economy. We haven't fully and optimally unleashed the potentials in those areas. So this is something that transcends, onto the ordinary Nigerian.
Let's talk about the new minimum wage. Some states are yet to implement it, which is leaving workers stuck with salaries that can't keep up with inflation. How can workers push for better enforcement?
Well, I think your question revolves, around the civic space, having a sound, civic space where individuals and organizations can contribute in the public space, by expressing their views and also by directly or indirectly, participating in decision-making processes in the country without, any repercussions or retaliation. I think that is, what the concept of the civic space is all about. So having a sound civic space would ensure that workers amplify their concerns to the rightful authorities, and also workers get sensitized on what they need to do and what they don't need to do in order to improve and adjust to the current situation, because even the minimum wage comes with, both the pros and cons, in terms of, the impact or effect it would have on workers, and including businesses and other meaning Nigerians.
Would you say Nigerian workers have adequate platforms or channels to express their concerns about economic policies?
Well, I would say yes, they have adequate platforms, but one thing is to have a platform, and another thing is to, efficiently utilize the platform in amplifying, and communicating to the right authorities, or to the employers, or to the government, the yearnings, the aspirations, the needs, of workers. So it's all about how they pass the message, onto the decision makers, and also contribute in the dialogue and also in the decision-making processes. Most of the public and private institutions have their own organized, groups that speaks in favor and on behalf of, the workers. So if they have a structured way of addressing and communicating their yearnings, their aspirations, and their problems, and I think it is something that would yield meaningful result in terms of, ensuring that their interest is being heard, is being listened, and it is being solved by the authorities.
So how can enhanced civic engagement help shape more inclusive participation and productivity?
You see, enhance to have a sound, civic engagement. I think it's a multifaceted, aspect that needs to be looked upon, ranging from, the economic policies, that have ultimately direct impact on workers, which I believe is within the purview of the government, and it is within their responsibility to work towards that. But at the same time, the civic space have the responsibility of, communicating effectively with the government and participating in such process, since the end result is about enhancing their livelihood. And also, our institutions need to be strengthened. The issue of transparency in public spaces and also in business spaces have to be, have to be well established, because this would go a long way. It will go a long way in solving most of the problem that is lingering. Corruption, we know, is a very cancerous thing in both the public and private workspace. I always like to make reference with, a research that was previously done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which was presented to the federal government on corruption. They made a research, and, the findings revealed that corruption, if nothing is done, in addressing corruption, it would cost each Nigerian $1,000 by $2,000, by 2030, which represent about 50% of, our total GDP. And the issue of accountability and transparency, these are issues that also will add up in ensuring that, we have a sound, civic space where most of these issues, most of these aspirations and demands of workers would be heard, would be listened. And I think it is a global, thing that, the voices of workers, the voices of citizens are being listened, are being heard, and are being worked out in a manner that addresses most of the challenges and problems.
One of the federal government's recent key policies is the presidential compressed natural gas initiative. In practical terms, how can the CNG initiative reduce the cost of transportation for workers and improve the ease of doing business?
Thank you. I think one of the greatest policy that the federal government, put up is that of the CNG initiative, through their various programs, which is championed by the presidential initiatives on CNG. This aims to ameliorate the effect of high cost of transportation for Nigerians, not only workers, those that are not even working, those that even the downtrodden, would eventually get to have ease in most of their, economic activities both at personal level, and at, a public level. So if you look at the incentives that comes with it, it addresses the issue of high cost. Because if you're operating on a CNG vehicle, you save at least 70% on energy cost. If you are utilizing as a public or a private worker, public transportation system with this initiative, you'll get to pay less, in getting to your workplace and in your daily activities. So this ultimately will have a direct impact, on workers. So I think it's high time Nigerians embrace it, and work towards, transitioning into the compressed natural gas as an alternative energy option. And I've seen, intentional efforts by the government in trying to see that it cut across various parts of the country, and this would go a long way in addressing the energy crisis, which ultimately would have a good or a direct impact, on the ordinary Nigerians, more especially the workers.
Okay, the May Day theme is about reclaiming space, but it is also about hope. Now, if you could envision a Nigeria where workers' voices are truly heard, what would that look like? And what is one step we can take this year to get there?
Well, I've had, agitation from different quarters, of the country, calling for policy reforms, especially the Cybercrime Act that has to do with, criminalization of, amplifying of voices in a certain way. But at the same time, is something also these agitators need to look at it from both sides of it, because most often, people, disgruntled elements in the country, tries to take advantage, of this organized agitation or amplification of voices that is meaningful, to use it in a way that, becomes cancerous to Nigerians I would like to make reference with what happened during the NSAS. It's something that was amplified through digital activism. The use of social media has made a great role in bringing about that protest, but it is obvious that some disgruntled element tries to take advantage of the legitimate yearnings of the people. So this kind of things requires regulation to some extent if you look at it from one aspect, and if you look at it from the other aspect, those that are out there to legitimately express their challenges, their feelings, their interest, their views, in terms of governance and economy and whatnot, are being deprived by this disgruntled element. So it's all about having a kind of positive sensitization on how to effectively utilize this medium within the civic space in such a manner that it is peaceful, in such a manner that it is sound, it makes sense, and in such a manner that constructive argument and criticism will yield to good results.
Mr. Farouk, before I let you go, what should workers and businesses be doing differently to adapt to ongoing changes in the economic landscape? Very briefly.
Thank you, but this question goes beyond workers. I think it has to do with mindset of all meaning Nigerians. As I've mentioned in the beginning of this interview, economic diversification in Nigeria is becoming more and more important in a way that without which Nigeria cannot transition to a developed economy. So right from government policies in terms of, our academic curriculum, skills acquisition should be promoted, where the mindset of students churning out of institution will not be geared towards working only, but also towards being, creative, in solving most of our economic challenges. And in that case, we increase the number of, employers rather than workers. So I would like to respond to you in that direction, and that is the mindset at which the government needs to look at, invest a lot in, human capital development, in terms of skill acquisition, in terms of also infrastructural development, in terms of also creating the necessary policies that would spur, the industrialization, aspect in the country, and also in a way that incentives would be given in those areas. So this, I believe, would transcend onto the workers. They would have more relief in their day-to-day activities, their compensation, their remuneration, purchasing power. All of our economic indicators, will feel the impact of it. So I think this is how I intend to respond to you, and I hope I have responded
Very well.
to your question.
A very big thank you to you, Mr. Farouk Abdullahi, for